By the spring of 1945, the Third Reich was crumbling. American soldiers, young men from Kansas, Tennessee, and Ohio, found themselves face to face with some of the most feared fighters the Nazi regime had ever produced, the Schutzstaffel, the SS. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were ideological enforcers, trained to follow orders without question, to show no mercy, and to die for the Führer. But what happened when the war turned? What happened when American commanders gave the orders? And what happened when SS officers refused? The Schutzstaffel began as a small personal bodyguard unit for Adolf Hitler. Under Heinrich Himmler, it grew into something far more sinister, a state within a state, with its own military forces, its own intelligence apparatus, and its own machinery of mass murder. By the time American forces arrived in Europe, the SS had three critical branches: the Allgemeine SS, the administrative arm, the Waffen-SS, the military wing, and the Totenkopfverband, the Death's Head units, that ran the concentration camp system. These were the architects of genocide, not reluctant bystanders. When American forces began capturing SS personnel in 1944 and 1945, they were not dealing with a broken enemy seeking mercy. Many SS officers remained defiant, conditioned to believe that surrender was dishonor, that Americans were racial inferiors, and that the Reich would rise again. That defiance would manifest in ways both violent and calculated, and American commanders had to decide how to respond. Germany's formal surrender came on May 8, 1945, V-Day. But the SS did not simply lay down their weapons. In dozens of locations across Germany, Austria, and occupied territories, SS units chose to fight on. As American forces advanced toward Hitler's mountain retreat at Berchtesgaden, SS units in the Alpine positions refused surrender demands outright. Some opened fire on white flag envoys, a direct violation of the laws of armed conflict. American forces responded with overwhelming firepower. Those who refused and continued fighting were eliminated. Those captured afterward faced detention, interrogation, and the added weight of potential war crimes charges for attacking surrender envoys. Not all SS defiance was directed at Americans. In one of the war's great ironies, many Waffen-SS units that had refused to surrender to American authority actually fought westward to escape Soviet capture. They knew exactly what awaited them in the East. Soviet forces, who had witnessed the full horror of SS campaigns in Poland and Russia, showed little mercy. Tens of thousands of SS men captured by the Soviets were executed in the field or sent to Siberian labor camps from which few returned. When faced with the choice, many SS units made a cynical calculation: fight through to the Americans. American commanders found themselves in an extraordinary position. Men who had committed atrocities across Europe were now desperately seeking their protection. The Americans did not offer forgiveness, but they offered process. And for many SS officers, that was enough to keep them alive. Perhaps the most visceral confrontations between SS officers and American authority occurred at the liberation of the concentration camps. When the U.S. 45th Infantry Division arrived at Dachau on April 29, 1945, they were not prepared for what they found, nor for what some SS guards chose to do. Soldiers discovered approximately 32,000 surviving prisoners and over 2,000 dead bodies on a train outside the camp gates. Some SS guards immediately threw down their weapons. Others did not. Several SS personnel opened fire on advancing American forces, triggering a chaotic firefight. In the fury of what they had witnessed inside, American soldiers shot and killed between 35 and 50 SS guards, some of whom had already surrendered. This became known as the Dachau Massacre. Lieutenant Colonel Felix Sparks, commanding the 157th Infantry, fired his pistol into the air to restore order. A U.S. Army investigation followed, but no charges were brought against American soldiers, given the extreme circumstances they had witnessed moments before. The lesson was brutal. SS men who chose defiance at the moment of liberation did not survive to explain it. At Buchenwald, liberated by the 6th Armored Division on April 11th, Commandant Hermann Piester had already fled. Several remaining SS guards chose a different form of defiance. They stripped their insignia and presented themselves as ordinary Wehrmacht soldiers. American intelligence officers, however, were increasingly adept at identifying SS men. Most bore a blood-type tattoo under the left armpit, standard SS practice. Those caught lying about their identity faced immediate transfer to special internment facilities and placement on war crimes prosecution lists. Deception through denial proved perhaps the most self-defeating choice an SS man could make. The Nuremberg trials, beginning in November 1945, represented a different kind of confrontation, legal, procedural, and historic. Here, in a Bavarian courtroom, senior SS figures faced American prosecutors. Several chose defiance right to the end. Kaltenbrunner was the highest-ranking surviving SS officer at Nuremberg. As chief of the Reich Security Main Office, he had overseen the Holocaust's operational machinery, the Einsatzgruppen mobile killing units, and the Nazi security state. Before the court, he chose wholesale denial. He claimed never to have ordered a killing, denied knowledge of the gas chambers, and rejected his own signature on death orders, documents the prosecution produced in damning succession. Each denial was methodically dismantled. Each piece of defiance became evidence of the SS' continuing contempt for accountability. Kaltenbrunner was found guilty on all counts and hanged on October 16, 1946. The most common deflection offered by SS defendants was the claim of Befehlsnotstand, superior orders. They had merely followed instructions. Refusal would have meant their own death. Therefore, they bore no personal responsibility. American and Allied prosecutors had anticipated this precisely. The Nuremberg Charter had been drafted to exclude it. The principle established, now foundational to international law, was unambiguous. Following an illegal order does not absolve the person who carried it out. The irony was devastating. The SS had spent years demanding that subordinates obey without question. Now, before American judges, they claimed that obedience made them innocent. The court rejected this argument completely, and in doing so, changed the legal landscape of the world forever. History is not only policy in battles. It is the story of individual choices made under extreme pressure. 3 SS officers faced American authority and made 3 entirely different decisions, with 3 entirely different fates. SS Standartenführer had negotiated with Jewish community leaders during the Hungarian deportations, a morally complex arrangement that saved some lives while the machinery of mass murder operated around him. When captured, he cooperated extensively with Allied prosecutors, providing testimony and documents. He was never tried. Released in 1948, he built a successful business career in West Germany. He died in 1995. Many survivors found his escape from justice deeply troubling. But his case illustrated the brutal logic of American policy. Cooperation was rewarded. Globoknik had overseen Operation Reinhard, the systematic murder of approximately 1.7 million Polish Jews at the Belzec, Sobibor, and Treblinka death camps. When British forces captured him in May 1945, he refused to face the consequences. Within hours, he bit down on a concealed cyanide capsule and died. He had chosen death over accountability, cheating justice, but also revealing the psychology of senior SS leadership. They knew what they had done, and they knew what awaited them. One of the Waffen-SS's most prominent generals and a personal friend of Hitler, Dietrich was prosecuted at the Dachau trials for the Malmedy massacre, the killing of American POWs in Belgium during the Battle of the Bulge. He maintained arrogant denial throughout. The evidence was systematic and overwhelming. He was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment, later reduced. He served 10 years, released in 1955 amid Cold War political pressures. He died in 1966. His case, like many, left survivors asking whether justice had truly been served. The confrontations between SS officers and American authority did not resolve cleanly. Justice was partial and imperfect, shaped by Cold War politics, the collapse of the German state, and the sheer scale of the crimes. Of the estimated 800,000 men who served in the SS in various capacities, fewer than 2,000 were ever tried. Some of the worst perpetrators lived out comfortable lives in West Germany, South America, and beyond. But what these confrontations established, permanently, was a principle that those who carry out orders to commit crimes against humanity are themselves criminals. That following an order does not make a person innocent. That the law reaches even those who believe themselves beyond it. The Nuremberg principles became the foundation of modern international criminal law, the framework that would later underpin tribunals for Rwanda, the former Yugoslavia, and the International Criminal Court. The world was not punishing them for being soldiers. The world was punishing them for being criminals.